Today we'll be looking at the orchestration for the piece The Queen's Sacrifice. Last time we did a piano sketch with an oboe lead, and today we're going to take that oboe soloist and we're going to support it with full orchestra. I'll be using an orchestra much like what I used for The King, since I planned for these pieces to be played together. Let's look at how I started the piece and how I orchestrated the piano accompaniment. Looking at the original sketch of the piece, you can see that we have a very simple accompaniment to the melody. It's just fifths, a few chords, and then returning to those fifths. So it has a very drone-like feeling. Let's take a listen to that. There's a simplicity to that sound that I really think works for this piece, and I want to honor that in the orchestration. So let's see what I chose to get that kind of roundness and soft edge to the sound that doesn't draw too much attention to itself. The instruments I chose are the harp and a harmonium, which is a type of reed organ commonly known as a pump organ in North America. The instrument has two foot pedals that the player uses to blow air into the bellows and then through the reeds to produce the sound. One of the advantages of the foot pedals is that you can control dynamics with them. So here where we have this decrescendo to triple P and then a change back to forte, the harmonium is able to produce these dynamics. The bass clef of the harp here is mostly doubling the harmonium. That's to give a nice soft round attack, or what's called point to the sound. This bracket indicates that the harpist isn't to roll the chords, but instead attack all of the notes simultaneously. Later on here where we want the harpist to roll the chords, this symbol indicates that they're to roll them from the bottom to the top note. Let's listen to the opening with just the harp and harmonium and see how these parts work together. One of the advantages of starting with this harp and harmonium combination is that it's a very delicate sound, and it gives us a lot of room to grow as we bring in the other instruments. First the double basses, then the cellos, then our mid-woodwinds along with strings, then a French horn solo line, and then the full French horn section, and finally the higher woodwinds. Let's take a listen to all of that without our oboe soloist and see how that sounds. heard there that by simply staggering the entrances of the instruments, along with the dynamics, we're able to get this very natural and organic build to the texture. Let's drill down into the strings now and see what they're doing here. In bar 5, the basses enter with a pizzicato E, just emphasizing that root note and adding a little bit more weight to the piece. Shortly after that, the cellos enter with this very important line. Our oboe soloist has just finished his phrase ending on a B an octave higher than this, and the cellos take over this line, which is a call and answer response. This line comes from our original piano sketch, and I gave it to the cellos here for 3 reasons. First, it's in the correct octave. The line was originally conceived an octave lower than our oboe soloist to help it to stand out. Also, by giving it to a color that's so different from the oboe, it really helps that line to be heard. If this were, say, the English horn in the same octave as the oboe soloist, it might get lost or confused in the listener's mind. Other lines that come from our original piano sketch include this line here in the violins 1, this line here in the violas, and this line here both in the violins and French horn. Let's listen to how these string lines that came from the original piano sketch interact with our oboe soloist. Finally, let's look at the end of the piece, the portion that we called shocking last time. A queen's sacrifice in chess is a very shocking moment, and in our piece of music, that's the moment where our queen decides to make her ultimate sacrifice. To signify this, I've decided to use church bells. And I'm talking about the actual church bell that hangs in a steeple, that large bell. One of the interesting properties about church bells that gives them the sound that they have is that certain partials that are unusual are accentuated. And in the case of a church bell, the minor third partial is accentuated. So let's look at what notes I've chosen to play on the church bells. The note I've chosen for the church bells is this G sharp, and that's because of that strong minor third partial we are talking about. The harmony I'm outlining here is an E major chord, and over the top of that I'm playing this flat 6 from our E Mixolydian flat 6 mode and resolving it down to the 5th, the B. So the bass chord that I want to hear here is an E major triad. No one else is playing this G sharp but our church bells. And that G sharp is producing a very strong partial of a B natural, which fits perfectly into our E major sound here. Had I chosen the root of the chord, say the E natural below this G sharp, which incidentally is the note of the famous Big Ben, then the most prevalent partial, that minor third partial, would have been a G natural, which doesn't fit at all with our E major sound. I have listened to some recordings of that low E of Big Ben, and wow, is that minor third partial of a G so prevalent in the sound, you can really hear it. You can see that I've marked this off stage and distant, and you'll find plenty of usages of church bells in classical music, and oftentimes they will be off stage. Now, even though they do make bells large enough to produce this note, and larger, as we saw with Big Ben, I calculated the weight of this bell to be something like 5¼ tons. So there's no chance that this would be a real bell in a concert setting. We'll definitely be using a sample for this sound, whether it's in a concert or in the studio. In the end, the orchestration is meant to support more than just our oboe soloist. It's also meant to support the story, that of a young queen walking to her balcony, looking over a kingdom that's about to fall, and understanding that the only way to save it is to sacrifice herself. So let's play the Queen's Sacrifice, and I'll see you all next time.